Hello out there to all the Call of Duty fans. Today we are talking some Black Ops 6 full game review. We're going to kick things off with some campaign here. Now, seeing how this is a full game review, I will let you know now this is going to contain tons of campaign spoilers. So let's get right into it. I do think the campaign in Black Ops 6 is one of the better campaigns in the series. I'm not sure if I personally would say it's the best or even the best in the last 5 years, but it does set itself apart from the rest in a few different ways. The first of those being the characters. The cast in this campaign is phenomenal. It possibly took the second spot for me in terms of my favorite cast all time, right behind the original Black Ops. Roy Marshall is the glue that just kind of holds this whole thing together. He was phenomenally written. Voice acting was phenomenal for Troy, and just honestly one of my favorite characters in the franchise, period, after everything we get to go through with him in a pretty decently long-sized campaign. In fact, it turned out to be the longest in terms of any of my long plays. So that was pretty interesting and fun as well. Um, Frank Woods is Frank Woods. I will admit, personally, I was not huge on the voice acting from Woods this year. I do know that they changed his voice actor. I'm not sure if that was just this year or if that was in the past, but either way, wasn't the biggest fan of him in that aspect this game, but as his role in the game, just kind of being the commander, if you would call him that, I really did enjoy how they utilized him being in the wheelchair and still making him work and still being a pretty big part of the story and campaign in general. Felix Newman was a wonderful touch. He reminded me a lot of Dieter from the movie Army of the Dead, if anyone's seen that. He was just comedic, charming, reliable, and a master of his craft. I actually have a hard time trying to decide between Felix and Troy on who was my personal favorite of the two. But overall, I really do enjoy Felix as a character. I just think he was perfect for the team and just perfect for the vibe of everything in general. And if you really do like pay attention to a lot of the backstory and character conversations, he actually has pretty good reasons for being in, being a part of the team this year. So I actually really like how they did him and how they worked his story lore into the equation. Savati Dumas, or Sev, was another character who I'm actually very fond of. She gets quite a bit of screen time, and deservedly so. She's deadly, and she's low-key one of the best leaders in the franchise and, in this campaign in general. If it wasn't for Troy being just an absolute natural for the position, she would have been an excellent option as top dog, if you ask me. I mean, she's pretty level-headed no matter what happens in the situation. She understands that she has to get the mission done. She does acknowledge that she's made some bad mistakes in the past while being in charge, but it has made her stronger and better as a result. And just overall, I really enjoyed her character. On the flip side, Helen Park just didn't really leave much of a memory on me. She's just kind of there. I mean, they mention her. She's critical to a mission or two, but overall, she really is. She's just kind of there. Moving on, Jane Harrow. I both liked and disliked Jane. It became clear to me during the mission hunting season, which is the game's 4th mission. You can find 4 audio files hidden throughout the mission, and if you do, they kind of tell a little bit of a story. And I figured out pretty much after listening to the 4th one that Case was going to be one of the patients. And it kind of just also started piecing everything else together and kind of told me, oh, well, okay, Jane's definitely the traitor and the villain in this story. And I enjoyed her in both roles, actually. I enjoyed her in the good guy role, just Troy's best friend who was on our side and was looking out for us. And then I also enjoyed the evil part of her that, sabotaged the CIA from the inside out and plans to lead the New World Order. I just didn't really like her reasoning for it all, which is obviously the writing. But the last 2 missions of the campaign were brilliantly done and brilliantly paced. But in terms of the story, they just fell flat on their face, if you ask me. And the grand finale was just a whole lot of meh. So I get that the thing was written to be primed for a sequel, but still, I just think the execution was lackluster. So Jane left a very bittersweet vibe on me by the end of the game. And last but certainly not least, ourselves, Case 1. We sucked. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We sucked. It's always going to be difficult, in my opinion, to relate to a character or really care about them when 1, we never see them, and 2, we never even hear them. Case is another protagonist that just doesn't ever say anything. and we just kind of have to live through the team around us when he is the main face of the mission. If there's working with the team, just kind of vibing off their voice lines, and if you're solo, just kind of listening to whoever's on the other line giving you instructions. They're kind of the life of the party, if you will. And most of the members of the team are actually quite chatty. And when we get to play as those missions where we're controlling Troy or Sev and all of those guys, they were more enjoyable for me just for that alone. And so ultimately, I think that with how good everyone else was, it was kind of even more disappointing that we kind of don't talk and we don't ever even get to see ourselves. So wasn't a big fan of that, but considering that we do get to play as kind of a little bit of everyone, it kind of balanced out and made it okay. But here's where things take a little bit of a turn for me. So the originality aspect of it. I wish I could say the campaign was original, but it's not. Case is brainwashed, which is made clear in the game's opening mission, Bishop Takes Rook. And if this doesn't sound familiar, it definitely should. 2010 Black Ops features, in my opinion, the best Call of Duty campaign ever written. Alex Mason, protagonist, was captured, became a prisoner of war, and then becomes brainwashed. Black Ops 2 is set in the future where you play as David Mason, Alex's son, and Alex is going to be meeting with an elderly version of Frank Woods, who's going to recall all the events between the original Black Ops and current timeline now, and you're going to flip between then and present mission and past missions, and when you are in the past, you're going to be replaying Alex Mason again, who of course is still brainwashed. And this worked perfectly. It didn't feel old, it didn't feel overdone, it felt like it worked. And then things kind of got tricky in 2015. We see, in my opinion, the worst Call of Duty campaign ever made, which is Black Ops 3. And Black Ops 3 is set in the distant future under the command of John Taylor, who was played by Christopher Maloney, a guy I'm actually a very big fan of. So the fact that he couldn't save this for me just was shocking. But this game has exosuits and, these smart chips that are linked directly to your brain and can allow you to communicate with other people just by thinking and, all types of futuristic stuff. And ultimately, long story short, John Taylor goes on a mission, finds something that infects him and pretty much his whole team with a virus that takes control of their minds. So, in essence, brainwashed. And then we get to 2020, Black Ops Cold War, which is also, in my opinion, one of their better campaigns ever. But surely we have a new plot, right? Like, surely. Well, during the game's opening mission, Nowhere Left to Run, you're sent on an operation, you take out General Rosh, and you watch him as you're on an airstrip, and he's going to kill every person in his escort vehicle before he goes and tries to escape and you apprehend him. Well, turns out that one of the people in the back of that vehicle is you, Bell, and you weren't dead, and Adler is going to take you, save you, and then wipe your memory and brainwash you into believing you've always been a part of their team because he thinks that you can be the key to saving the day, and of course you are. But once again, up until this point, we have not had a Black Ops campaign where it's not mind control or brainwashing, pretty much the same thing, right? So you would assume that we're getting into Black Ops 6 now, a new era. We can kind of, not a new era because obviously it's still kind of floating in those same little timelines as before, but just a chance to finally do something new, and then they just didn't. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. I felt like everything else was just done very well, and then they just kind of fell flat on their face with just reusing the same trope that they've used a lot. And then it wasn't just, they didn't just stop there. They took a lot, and I mean a lot, from the Black Ops 3 campaign and then also some from the Cold War campaign. Emergence was a mission that the internet just raved about. They loved it, and I loved that for y'all. But I really didn't like it as much. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of bringing zombies into the campaign. It was cool-ish the first time. They did it in Black Ops 3, even though I really wasn't a fan then. But in my opinion, this is the campaign, not zombies. We have zombies for that. And I actually think that they maybe could have done that as a way to make people want to play zombies, and that is genius. I will give them that. But overall, I want to play the campaign. I don't really want zombies in my campaign. But that's just personally me. I'm not knocking anyone that enjoyed it. But again, that whole mission was kind of just ripped directly from Black Ops 3. Not the exact same style where you go and fight different areas and bosses, but just the concept of how it happened. And it just kind of, when it happened to me, I was like, oh, we're doing this again? All right, I guess, like, let's do it. And I loved the campaign regardless. It was just really hard for me to fall in love with the campaign because I felt like we've just done this before, and that's because, you know, we have. So overall, in terms of campaign, to wrap this up, I would definitely recommend this campaign to anyone interested in it. While I had a soft lock in the mission hunting season where I somehow killed the captain and it prevented me from progressing the mission, I had to restart the entire mission as my restart from the checkpoint option still had him dead. So that sucked, but other than that, I had absolutely no issues with the campaign bug-wise. If you have not played all of the Black Ops campaigns, this will be a 9 and maybe even a 10 out of 10 experience for you. But as a day one Call of Duty fan, if you have played all of the Black Ops campaigns, maybe not as much. I think I'd personally give it a 7 out of 10, just due to the above reasons. The originality really kind of killed it for me. I figured out the story. I knew everything in the story by that 4th mission. I just didn't know why Jane did it. And obviously we know at the end because of her parents' murder. Okay, cool. But I personally wouldn't rank it above 2010 Black Ops, 2011 Modern Warfare 3, Ghosts, World War II, Vanguard, or even 2022's Modern Warfare 2. Now, that's not necessarily saying it's bad. I still think it's one of the better campaigns, and I probably pumped more hours into it willingly than I did any of these other ones. But that's just because there's a ton of replayability in it as well with those challenges and calling cards that you can do. So overall, I would thoroughly recommend it. It's just my personal take on it. I do wish there was a little more originality in there. Alrighty, let's move on into what many people play Call of Duty for: multiplayer. Let's start with the good, then we'll move into the bad. The good. Prestige mode is back and it is better than ever. It is the classic level reset and 1 permanent unlock token per prestige level, but this time you earn bonus rewards as you progress through levels such as calling cards, weapon blueprints, operator skins, emblems, gobblegum packs for the zombies guys and girls out there, and you also get some pretty cool loading screens as well. So not only is the grind back, but it really gives you something to play for, and for me personally, that was huge within the last like 5 Call of Duty releases where I was not a fan of the seasonal prestige method. Just kind of felt like a pointless grind for nothing. Whereas it's just something about that classic prestige mode just feels like a challenge, resetting every time to level 1 and just grinding through everything. And I don't know, personally, it just feels more rewarding for me and it makes me want to play the game more. And I love it. So I think that anyone experiencing for the first time might be a little bit not fond of everything resetting, but overall, I have seen a general positive reception from the community for it being back, so I love to see that. More good. The gun grind. It's a little mid, I'm not gonna lie. However, it's accessible and it's not a total pain in the rear end, so that is nice, and I would label it as good and not bad. Every single gun does require you to obtain 100 headshots to progress through the military camos, with the exception of the launchers, of course, and knife as well, as you don't really need headshots with the knife. But once you get through the military camos, you will unlock 2 more special camo challenges, which are different for each weapon, but they're usually pretty easy. They can be varying from things like get 50 kills using that weapon while running 3 perks of a specified set, to getting 20 noob tube kills with the grenade launcher underbarrel attachment. So again, usually pretty easy and can be done in about 2 to 4 games, 1 to 2 if you're playing Nuketown 24/7. And then you'll finally make your way to gold, which is universal across all weapons in terms of challenge wise. You'll have the same challenge. And then that'll be the same with diamond and dark spine as well. Nothing new, but a lot of grinding for the headshots and plenty to do for those who like to grind it out. More good, the movement. The movement does feel phenomenal. Omni movement is not quite as gimmicky as I was worried about, like if we're talking about in comparison to last year's combat stance, which by the way is still in the game. In case anyone was wondering, you can slap an attachment on there to make that happen. But it's not game altering in a negative sense, and it actually provides a means of actual escape in a game where you die almost instantly, and we'll talk more on that later. But just things like diving while simultaneously mantling through a window or over a wall, it just feels great every time, if you ask me. I was worried that there would be issues with such a big overhaul to the movement system, but so far it's been crisp, smooth, and a seamless transition for them, so I do give them a lot of props there. The bad. Whew. The maps, man. The maps are awful. Look, I might create content on the game, but I don't claim to be amazing at the game. I don't put out montage clips of how good I think I am. And this is no shade to anyone, by the way. I'm just saying I make content just pretty much playing the game. Like, I do put a lot of hours into it, but I'm playing just chill, whatever. So I'm not asking for competitive maps and this, that, and the third. I do genuinely think that the maps are bad. I see a lot of people saying that they're not as bad as Modern Warfare 19, and I agree with you. But I also think that we would agree that Modern Warfare 19 probably has the worst launch maps in Call of Duty history. So what are we really saying about these maps today? That they're the second worst? I would agree. And that's not a compliment at all, obviously. We have 20 Call of Duties now. I genuinely hate strong word, but I hate 50% of these maps. And of the ones I don't hate, which would be Vorkuta, Vault, Subsonic, Scud, Rewind, and Payback, I don't hate those maps. The only maps of those that I like, that I enjoy playing on, are Payback, Subsonic, Scud, and Vault. 4 out of 12 is rough when you're putting in the hours I have since launch. It's not something that I feel like should have been an issue with the 4 years of development time. I felt like it should have been the opposite. I feel like we should have had some killer launch day maps. So that has been pretty disappointing, to say the least. And then spawns as well. Look, spawns in Call of Duty have never been particularly great. But seeing how a lot of these maps feel on the smaller side, you combine that with attack sprint style movement as well as heavy spawn flip system, and you just have drastically exasperated how awful spawns are in this game. Shipment is fun because it's pure chaos and it is so small, it's hard not to drop a 50 bomb. But your head has to stay on a swivel because because it's so small, people are going to spawn directly behind you, in front of you, left and right of you. The problem with Black Ops 6 is that every map spawns feel like you're playing a game of Shipment, and that's just wrong. On a map as large as Rewind, it just should not be possible it just shouldn't be possible for me to spawn directly in front of an enemy. I've spawned in front of enemies already shooting at other people. That happens in Shipment because Shipment has so little room to work with, but Rewind has a ton of real estate to prevent it. We're not playing ground war. There's only 6 enemies on the map. You can find somewhere on the map to spawn me where an enemy's not immediately going to see me and kill me, or isn't going to already be shooting and you put me in his line of fire. So I'm not sure what the fix is there because, like I said, spawns in Call of Duty have never been particularly great. They've always had to kind of work on that. But it's a combination of the maps and the spawns. So I don't know how they're going to balance that moving forward, but we will see. Hopefully there are some improvements there. But moving on to the real issues, the real meat and potatoes here. I can't believe we're even talking about this. Call of Duty has had many issues over the years, from abused perks like one-man army, tactical insert nukes from Modern Warfare 2, elevator glitches, shotguns hitting across the map, to the modern day issues, your texture issues, black screening, not being able to connect to friends, lobbies, parties, and so on. We have never, ever once had to talk about netcode in Call of Duty, but here we are. And this isn't to throw shade, but what in the X Defiant is going on here? Desync issues causing hit registration issues, character animations aren't functioning properly, so you looks like a guy's not even looking at you when in reality he is. We have guys teleporting here on Nuketown. I mean, this is a one-off, but this is just how bad it can be. Call of Duty has added a ton of new hitboxes this year. They talked about it at COD Next, and it has come with issues. Mainly that quite a few of these hitboxes are just registering outside the character model, and it's frustrating. If you feel like you watched a kill cam, especially if it's more particularly glaring in sniper kill cams, and it looks like he just shot 3 inches to your left or to your right, he did, but it still hit you. We have lag compensation dragging down entire lobbies now. It's quite frankly, it's terrible, but I have no idea why we have this issue in the first place. COD did just see its biggest opening weekend ever, thanks to Game Pass, and also in small part to the Black Ops name, because that always draws a little bit extra hype if you ask me, and it undoubtedly draws the zombie fans back out to the game. So I would hope that these issues do get resolved immediately. We have Season 1 right around the corner, November 14th. So hopefully when they roll out that update, it takes care of several things. Because ultimately, as we wrap this up, there's a ton to love with Black Ops 6 multiplayer. But laziness in terms of things that a lot of people criticize people for complaining about. People talked about this, as you can see here, some of the just minor details like the graphical design elements, bars not lining up. One thing that really annoys me in multiplayer here, if we look at these launchers, can you read that challenge right there? Because I really couldn't. I had to get all the way up to my monitor and squint. Now I wear glasses, but my vision's not that bad. These little issues might be something silly to complain about, I'll agree with you, but they add up. Okay, they add up. And it shows that if you can't get the easy stuff right, like this, what do you think the structural stuff looks like, aka the netcode? And as we can see, it's very bad right now. So it's I don't know if it's just laziness or just not really attention to detail, which is arguably just laziness in general. But combine that with some weak launch maps, and I think these things are very much so preventing this game from shining bright, very bright. There is hope, like I said, with Season 1 coming, with bug improvements, and of course we're going to get new weapons to grind and as well new maps. But with those new maps, we need to see some substantial improvement in how these things are flowing and how they're designed. Otherwise, they just need to go remake heavy, and I would be okay with that. I know a lot of people might not be, but I would rather, if they can't get it right with new design maps, I would honestly rather just play the classics that we know are good. So that's where I'm at personally with multiplayer. Alrighty, last but certainly not least, this will be the shortest part of the video simply because I am not a big zombies guy. But we are going to talk about it here. So, Terminus. To me, Terminus features a vibe like old school zombie maps. It's larger. It has incredibly difficult to complete Easter egg. Not necessarily difficult to figure out. Some of the guys, congratulations to them, figured it out within the opening day. But in terms of the final boss fight and completing it, this thing is tough, man. And I've seen some zombie guys that can't do it solo. So that's pretty interesting. I've said that I would like to see difficulty back in the zombies Easter eggs, and I think they delivered here. If you ask me, in the eyes of a casual zombies player who has not liked zombies since Infinite Warfare, Terminus is a peak map, like peak. It offers plenty to do for the hardcore zombies fans, but it can also be thoroughly enjoyed as a casual player. The atmosphere and the area of exploration just leaves you constantly on the move looking for new things. And it's just hours of fun. Rather you want to dive into that Easter egg, like I said, as a hardcore player, or if you just want to grab some buddies and kill some zombies, you are going to have fun and a lot of it. Liberty Falls, on the other hand, is not my cup of tea. I feel like it just has no atmosphere. I know they said that they were going to work on it and it looks better than it did from the COD Next trailer reveal, but I still feel like it has no atmosphere, and to me it's boring. It just reminds me of Outbreak in terms of putting me to sleep. Not that they're the same thing, Just that's how boring it comes off to me. It just doesn't feel like anything zombies. It feels more like Warzone collaborating with zombies. And I've seen a lot of people say that they actually love it and it's a blast. They've completely flipped their opinion and mindset from pre-launch, and I love that for you guys. But like I said, it's just zombies isn't something that I put a whole lot of time into, not since Infinite Warfare at least. So I'm not claiming to be an expert or like my opinion is golden, but like I said, the map's just not for me. So I'm not gonna really play it. When I do play zombies, it's gonna be Terminus. So for now, that's just where I'm at. But wrapping up zombies, the year is shaping up to be one of the better zombies experience in many years from what I understand. My buddy Insane Gamer is a zombies content creator, so I hear plenty about it and he's loving it. From what I understand, there's plenty of lore in this zombies and actually like good lore, an intriguing story that people are going to want to keep up with. It's so good that it may actually pull more of my time once I'm done with the camo grind over a multi. And speaking of that though, Zombies, once again, if you're not familiar, offers its own separate camo grind that is equally, if not more of a grind than multiplayer. And I think that's awesome. It gives the Zombies mains just as much to work for as the multiplayer guys. And then we are also going to be getting one more zombies map, I think similar to Terminus, before the end of this year, which sounds like it means Season 1 Reloaded. Because again, we know Season 1 is going to be November 14th, and then not too long before the end of the year from that, right? So it sounds like Season 1 Reloaded, we're going to be getting a new zombies map, and that is going to be something I'm going to check out day one, no doubt. So, my final thoughts on all of this. Black Ops 6 had a lot of hype, and I personally am not 100% sure if it delivered, depending on who you're asking. If you're a newer Call of Duty fan or if you're an OG fan, that answer might differ. For me, it did not quite hit the mark, but for all the reasons I did not expect. The issues I thought the game would have are fine. I thought the overhauled movement system would produce some issues. I thought that they would maybe do some like weird stuff with prestige mode that they weren't letting on at first. But none of that was happened. It's beautiful. But things that I never thought would be an issue in Call of Duty, netcode, the campaign being the same story again, those issues were there. And it's kind of funny to me how that turned out. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, I would certainly feel free to dump some hours into this game and absolutely play that campaign, like even first. But if you're on the fence about spending $70 or more on this game and you're not worried about being behind on the grind, I think I would hold off, maybe wait a week or two after Season 1 on November 14th. And kind of see at that point what guys are saying. You know, did they fix a lot of these netcode issues? Is the game feeling as it should? How are the maps looking? Are there any hope for the new design maps? Because ultimately I do think that right now, if you're on the fence and you go out and you get the game, I think you're going to be disappointed. For the casual guys out there, casual players are going to play and they're probably not going to care much because they're only pumping an hour or two in every week. So it's difficult to gauge just off numbers and the popularity. And like I said, the Steam concurrent players you'll see online and how many copies you sold. So like I said, at the end of the day, casuals booted up for a couple hours a week. They might not even notice some of these things, or they just might not care. But if you're somebody who is going to be playing hours a day, you're going to notice, it's going to bother you, and you're going to be frustrated. So I think that overall this game does have potential to be the best Call of Duty that we've had, predating even the Modern Warfare 19 era. So we're talking the air quote golden and boost jump eras. And I think that that's awesome, but they really have to clean up this netcode, and they have to show us that they can design maps that people love, not just tolerate. But those are my thoughts on this game as a whole. So let me know how you guys are feeling in the comments below, and thanks for checking me out.